Hello, I'm James Helfrich. I'd like to share with you some of the features that are part of the slide decks, which come with the software design textbook. Each slide has global navigation features, and these features allow you to jump to each of the four sections. The first section is content. This contains the main illustrations, tables, and data from the associated chapter. The next is solutions to examples illustrated in an interactive way, designed to facilitate discussion between the instructor and the students. There are solutions to the exercises as presented in the textbook and solutions to the problems as presented in the textbook. Each slide in the deck has global navigation links, jumping to the summary slide for each section. Let me demonstrate this. This comes from Chapter 16, Recursion. Notice there are placeholders for you to put the schedule and today's plan. All right, this is the overview of the content section. And notice the global navigation up here. I can go from content to examples, to exercises, to problems. But let's start at content. And I want to say head to tail recursion. And it shows you the difference between them. I want to go back to content and maybe a program trace associated with recursion with some animation as I go through. Now from here, I can jump straight to examples and example 16.4, or I can go straight to exercises and 16.2, fact or fiction, is this fiction, this is fiction, and this is fact. Or maybe I'll go to problems, 16.8. Notice how it's always 2 clicks to get from any one slide to the other. And this facilitates the instructor being able to dynamically change the order of the presentation so the instructor can be more responsive to the students' questions or their particular needs. So let's take a look at the interactive content. This content slides are drawn from illustrations in the textbook, and each slide is designed to facilitate discussion and to be a focal point for Q&A. So for an example, the V model, if we want to walk through the V model, we say, hey, we first start with requirement solicitation, from which we generate our acceptance test plan. And from here, we're going to go down to system design. But if we realize we have some problems with the system design, then maybe we should go back to requirement solicitation. But from the system design, then I can create my system test plan and then start working on my component design. But of course, if I'm working on a component and I realize there's a flaw in my system plan, I can go back up. For my component design, I think then go to my integration test plan. Anyways, I can continue walking through this and explain it as I go each step of the way. And the slides are designed to facilitate that discussion and explanation to the students. Here's another example. This is for the test case chapter, and it shows a different way to do boundary conditions. In this case, boundary conditions for a variable that stores a GPA. Now, there's also an exercise section, and exercises have interactive features allow the instructor to reflect on students' responses and provide instantaneous feedback. For an example, I want to go through the malleability levels, so I can ask the students, what's the best level malleability? And they'll say configurable. And then one student says, well, maybe it is refactorable. And, oh, well, that's probably there's something in between here. So I can click them in any order. What's the definition of data-driven? What's the definition of configurable? What's the definition of prohibitive? And I can go through and click these in any order that I want. Another exercise, I want to classify the level of understandability and malleability. And so, one student say, hey, I think it is deducible. I'm like, well, I think it's better than that. Maybe it's obvious, perhaps it is. What's the level of malleability? It's refactorable. No, it's not. Is it adjustable? Yes, it is. And I can click through these in any order I want, reflecting as students guess what the answer may be. Here's another example. I want to do a matchup here for a UML class diagram. They're going to say, hey, what is this triangle for? This is actually inheritance. What is this open diamond for? This is aggregation. What is the pinwheel for? This is nested class. And of course, I can click these any order that I want. The slides also have interactive examples, which allow the instructor to walk through how to solve a problem. So for an example, I want to go through recursion and explain how recursion works versus iteration for the same problem. So I can click through. I'm going to create a program trace. So here are my line numbers, and I'm going to walk through one step at a time, allowing the instructor to explain, or maybe even go back and then explain again how things work. The same thing is true with the iteration. I could do a trace for this. And once again, the instructor can explain each step of the way. Here's another example. I want to compute the algorithmic efficiency of this Python program. So once we can go through one step at a time, this line of code is O sub n, this is O sub n, this is O sub n, this is O sub n, and therefore the overall cost, and this is O sub 1 because we can only do it once, and therefore the overall cost is O sub n. And here's another example. I want to add asserts to this program, which is going to compute sales tax. So we can expand and have the student say, where do you think it should go? Where should we add an assert? And then we can go through and explain each one as we add asserts to it in a dynamic way. Here's another example. I want to go through the test-driven development process. And so I'm going to take a requirement, which is going to be most years even though by 4 are leap years. Then I'm going to create some tests. I want to create a unit test for that particular test case. Then I'm going to run the test, and it's not going to work because I have not implemented it yet. And then finally, I'm going to write the code. And here's the code that then catches that particular requirement. And then I might want to refactor it afterwards to make sure that it's more efficient. So each of the 50 chapters in the software design textbook has an associated slide deck. And of course, if you use this textbook for your class, all these slides are available to you, making for a very plug and play integration into your class. Please subscribe to the software design channel or take a look at the other features in the offering by selecting the playlist.